What's up, guys? It's your boy Anthony, and I'm back in another video. Today's video, we are going to be reacting to
WANSEE Entertainment.
Now, apparently, this channel is a Korean horror channel. They make all sorts of horror short stories or whatever. Animations. Now, to be honest, I didn't know I was going to be making this video today. Until, on my recommendations, I saw True Uncle's House Horror Story Animated popped up on my recommendations. So now it says I've watched the video. I actually haven't seen the video yet. I just got it up in the background. But we are going to be watching WANSEE Entertainment today. Let's hope these are not that scary. I'm doing this because Halloween is around the corner. So why not? Let's do this. Here we go. Boom, boom, and boom.
Jayesh, I'm from...
The Keeper.
My name is Jayesh. I'm from Mumbai, India. This story is from the monsoon season of the year 2019. I had just completed my college courses and planned to spend the rest of the vacation at my native village. My village is situated in the western coastal region of India known as Konkan. My family owns an ancestral house there, though we live far away in the city. We visit that house only on occasions like festivals. This time, I wasn't accompanied by my parents since they were busy with their work. I was joined by my college friends, Rahul, Bren, and Payel. My parents reluctantly agreed to allow me to travel and stay there when I promised that I wouldn't mess things up and reasoned that I was grown up, plus accompanied by friends. After a full day's journey via train, we finally reached the destination. We were picked up by Uncle Datta, who was our house caretaker. My father had called him 2 days earlier and told him to prepare everything for our stay. We arrived at the house by evening, and we were already tired at that point due to the long trip. We were invited to have dinner at my uncle's place, so we went with him there. After having dinner, we stayed for a while talking and didn't realize that it was already 12 at night. My friends and I were ready to head back, but Uncle requested us to stay at his place for the night since it was already too late to head back. And also, the night of the new moon, meaning no moon, would be visible in the night sky. Uncle Datta said that it's dangerous to go outside as many animals and other things come out in the dark. I reluctantly agreed to stay there, so he prepared us mattresses on the floor to sleep. It was a comforting cool temperature, so I immediately fell asleep. But around 1 a.m., I woke up startled by the creaking sound of a door being opened. I saw Uncle heading outside with a torch in his hand and a shawl.
Oh God, this escalated very quickly. This is not. It's not even 2 minutes. Almost 2 minutes into the video, the conflict already started, and the uncle or whatever is leaving.
Covered around his body. He closed the door slowly from outside so that nobody would wake up. I thought he went to the toilet, which was next to the house. I remained awake and waited for him to return. The room was silent, other than the steady ticking of the clock, and mostly dim due to the low lamplight. Half an hour later, Uncle still didn't come back through the door. Something is wrong, I thought to myself. My friends were deep asleep. I felt that waking them up would make everyone panic. So I quietly turned to Bren, who was sleeping just next to me. I moved over next to him and called him in a low tone. Bren, wake up. Bren was still in his dreams, so I shook him a little and slightly more loudly said, "Wake up, something is wrong." Bren immediately opened his eyes in response and turned towards me. I put a finger on my lips and said, "Shh, don't be loud or else you will wake the others up. Something is wrong. Uncle has not returned yet. It's been an hour now." Bren spoke clearly, still half asleep. He must have something important, so he went outside. But what important work does he have to do at midnight? I said with a worried tone. Without saying anything else, I slowly stood up and headed for the door. Bren sat up and was watching me, looking confused about what I was doing. I grabbed a flashlight on the table next to the door and slowly cracked the door. There was a creaking noise from the old hinges, but no one else woke up from it. I went outside, and even though I was wearing a hoodie, the air felt frigid and sent a chill down my spine. I turned on the flashlight and began looking around for Uncle. I walked over to the toilet and searched inside and outside, but nobody was there. The environment outside was completely
What was that? Bro,
dark and cold, with the sounds of crickets and frogs filling in the silence. After searching around the house, I found no sign of him anywhere. I don't know how I dared to venture further out, because the surroundings were dense trees and bushes that are home to many wild and deadly animals, but I decided to keep looking for him. I was walking slowly and carefully, looking and listening and moving my flashlight around to check my surroundings properly. Soon, I reached the rice fields owned by our family, since I thought Uncle might be there. As the tall grass covered most of my lower body, I took every step carefully, aiming my flashlight at the ground to avoid stepping on something that could be dangerous. When I reached the middle of the field, I called out, "Uncle, are you there?" Turning a different direction each time. I called loudly 2 times, but there was no answer. But suddenly, I froze and stood there still after I noticed that the sounds of the crickets and amphibians had suddenly stopped, and there was...
Fun fact. Whenever you like crickets are making sounds and they all of a sudden stop, something bad is about to happen.
a complete dead silence. That usually means a predator or some animal was around. I heard the rustling in the grass and movements around the field. I moved my flashlight in the direction the sound came. I saw grass rustling. Then I did a dumb thing. I picked up a stone and threw it in the direction the sound was coming from. When the stone hit the ground, the rustling grass stopped. I went closer to inspect and check if I might have killed or injured that animal or something. But out of nowhere, a wild boar rushed towards me and tackled me to the ground. It was an ambush, and I fell for it. I couldn't fight since I was unarmed, holding just a flashlight in my hand. It looked very dangerous, and I was scared for my life. Its impenetrable black skin covered with hair, its sharp tusks ready to rip skin and flesh, the saliva dripping from its mouth, and the deadly gaze of its yellow eyes, which I could see with the glow of the flashlight. I sat up but remained frozen and scared from the shock. I had never encountered such a huge animal in my life. Even when my parents warned me not to mess with the boars, it seems as though the boar was angry at me because I hit it with the stone. When I tried to get up, the boar screeched loudly, which literally shook my eardrums. But then I suddenly heard the sound of a hand drum coming from somewhere, and it was getting louder, like it was moving towards me. The hand drums were instruments used by the villagers to scare away boars and birds from the fields. The wild boar took a step back and then ran off. I was drenched in sweat, and I was about to pee my pants, but let out a sigh of relief when the boar was out of sight. I made it up onto my feet and turned around to see a dark figure standing at some distance. The figure was wearing a shawl around its body, holding a hand drum in its hand and a lamp in the other. I thought it was my uncle, so I ran towards him, but slowed to a stop as I got closer. I looked again, and that person was not my uncle. What am I seeing? I thought. The figure was at least 7 feet tall and wearing a brown shawl covering its body and head. Its hands were muscular and completely pale and gray. Instead of having a face, it was covered with darkness and had 2 shiny blue dots glowing in the place of eyes. I paused for a moment and was astonished, yet scared. I began to slowly walk backwards, but then the figure spoke in a deep and echoing voice. "Go back." I fell unconscious on the spot. The next morning when I came to, I was at Uncle's house and surrounded by my friends, my uncle, and the doctor. Before I could say something, Uncle informed me that he found me lying unconscious outside of the fields by a villager. They knew I was missing and everyone was searching for me. I explained to Uncle that I left the house in search of him and told him about my near-death encounter with the boar and meeting that mysterious tall figure. My uncle then told my friends and I that the figure that I encountered was a keeper. He told us that the keepers are the guardian entities which protect the fields from unwanted presences and wild animals and bless the fields with fertility and fortune. In exchange for the protection of the keepers, we break a coconut outside the fields on every new moon night as an offering to them. My uncle went on to tell us that he went to the fields that night to perform the offering. After listening to this, my friends and I were in total shock over whether to believe this or not. But what I encountered that night made me a believer. I realized that there are many entities out there, and some come with a motive to destroy, and some to protect.
Yeah, man. You never know what can happen. Anything can happen. I felt like a jump scare was gonna pop out of nowhere. So I was like getting prepared. I was like, but no. Let's watch this one right here. This one is called 3 True Horror Stories Animated. Creepy Woman, Beggar Highway. Let's watch this one.
Hello, my name is Anush. This incident happened to me in 2017 when I was 10 years old. My friend Jasper and I went to the same school and lived in the same neighborhood. Every weekend, we went to a forest nearby and played there. The forest wasn't very dense and had a few houses in it, so our parents didn't worry about us going there. One day, Jasper and I were walking into the forest and came across a house. As we walked up to it, a woman came out of the house and noticed us. She smiled and waved at us, and then called us over and told us to buy some green chilies. She gave us some money and told us where to go. She looked very friendly and even offered us some more money to buy something for ourselves. So, we accepted and went to buy the chilies. After buying the chilies, we both returned to the house and gave them to the woman. She told us to wait and went inside. I heard a noise from inside. It sounded like a blender, but I wasn't sure. So I peeked through the window and saw her blending the chilies into a paste. Then I saw her leave the kitchen, so I went back over to the door where Jasper was. What happened next was the most horrific thing I've ever experienced in my life. The woman showed us the bowl of chili paste she made, and then took it and smothered it all over her own face and eyes. Jasper and
You realize I'm in my room all alone, right?
I started screaming as she laughed with her face covered in spicy chili paste. We started running away from her, but she caught me. Jasper managed to run away from the house, but she brought me into her house and locked the door. She told me to take the paste and smother it on my face. I refused and threw the bowl down and started to cry and scream for help. She then got very angry at me and started slapping me, trying to silence me. Then I heard a noise outside. It was my friend and the people from the houses nearby. My friend had called for them to help. The woman heard the people and tried to run away through the back door, but she was caught. Some women in the group of neighbors recognized us and took us to our parents and told them about everything that had happened. Jasper and I listened to them talking. The woman in that house had apparently escaped from a mental institution and killed a mother and son who lived in that house and was living there for a few weeks. Jasper and I went to therapy and we recovered from what had happened. I'm 16 now, and Jasper is still my best friend. If he hadn't called for help, I probably would have died that day.
Wow.
Hi, I am Radhikant from India. I am currently in high school and live in an urban area. This is the story of the incident that changed the course of my life. This incident happened when I was around 5 or 6 years old. At the time of the incident, we were living in my home village. Our house was a single story with 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a garage adjacent to our house. We kept old things like refrigerators and things we don't use anymore.
I just gotta tell you this, guys. I'm not Indian. I'm Guyanese. Just want to say that.
In the garage. One day, my father was cleaning out the garage when he found a beggar inside eating a rat. My father was very startled, and being a typical Indian dad, he threw the beggar out of the garage and started shouting at him. As this was happening, I heard some loud noises, followed by my dad yelling, and I rushed outside to see what was going on. Once I arrived outside, I saw the beggar. He was a frail and scary-looking man with 2 large scratches across his neck, which appeared to have been cut by something very sharp. His eyes were totally white, and even from far away, there was a terrible stench coming from him. When he noticed me, he turned to look over at me and grinned. His smile alarmed me and sent a shiver down my spine. When my father noticed him looking strangely at me, he must have gotten even angrier, and so he ran over and punched him. The beggar fell and seemed knocked out for a moment, but he quickly got back up and then started cursing at my father with words in a language I could not understand. He seemed furious and looked around for something when he found a hammer lying on the ground from my father cleaning out the garage. He grabbed the hammer and threw it towards my father, but his throw was weak, so it didn't reach him. He began cursing at my father again, but my father ran him off, and the beggar disappeared into the distance. After
He
that
came
day, nothing related to the beggar happened again, and he was nowhere to be seen. But then, on the 7th night after the incident, I had a disturbing nightmare. In the nightmare, I saw my father being attacked by the beggar. In the beggar's hands were a hammer and a nail, and he placed the nail up to my father's chest and drove the nail directly into his heart. After seeing this happen, I woke up in a panic, but I never told anyone because my family doesn't believe anything is real about those kinds of horrors and nightmares. After that night, I had no dreams about the beggar again. But then, on the 21st day after the incident, my father was found dead, lying on his bed with his eyes wide open.
What?
They were totally white. Our family was devastated. After the funeral rites were complete, I was in his bedroom, looking at the photos of him and fetching old things from under his bed. As I reached under there, I eventually touched something that I didn't recognize. It was the hammer from the garage that the beggar had thrown at my dad that day. I have had a guilty conscience since then for not telling anyone about my dream, since it may have prevented what happened. So here I am, telling it to all of you. I plan to tell my mom everything soon, but I'm not sure what she will make of it. If there's anything I learned from all of this, it's to treat strangers kindly, because you never know what they might do if you anger them. But most importantly, I learned that we must cherish the time that we have with our loved ones. Though I received a warning that I didn't heed, there's no telling when any of us might lose a loved one without any warning at all.
Yeah, true. That's a good
Late
advice.
one night, after my uncle had just finished work, he was driving down the highway from his workplace. He worked in another town and had to travel back and forth daily to our town. The trip was about 45 minutes each way. It was around 10 p.m., so he was really drowsy and just wanted to get home. After about 20 minutes of driving, he heard a distant scream from up ahead. But as it was foggy, he couldn't really see far ahead. His headlights glowed faintly in the fog, barely lighting up the road in front of him. A minute or two after he heard the scream, he saw two faint lights in the distance, blinking. After driving a couple more 100 meters, he saw a car pulled over to the side with its hazards flashing. It was an old beater, barely roadworthy. Next to it, a man was jumping madly up and down.
That scared me a little bit.
My uncle, who is generally very careful, for some reason decided to help the guy despite the sketchy vibe he gave off. After pulling over, the man walked up to my uncle's car window. He asked my uncle if he could catch a ride, as his car had broken down. Despite my uncle wanting to help, he knew there was something off about this situation. The man looked slightly crazed. He was fidgeting, and he kept looking out into the distance.
Slightly.
My uncle turned to look where the man was looking, and he saw 3 other figures seemingly watching from a distance. Despite my uncle now definitely knowing that this was some sort of trap, he casually offered to call roadside assistance. However, the guy immediately said no and started getting angry.
Oh my God.
He began frantically tugging at the door handle, trying to open my uncle's car in any way possible. The man stepped back for just a moment, and trying to be inconspicuous, my uncle shifted the car into gear and started pulling away out onto the highway. The guy, realizing this, let out an unearthly scream and sprinted towards my uncle's car. But he didn't catch up because my uncle floored it and was now back on the road. As my uncle checked the rearview mirror, he saw the man and the 3 figures who had been watching from a distance, all holding what seemed to be some kind of weaponry. He sped away into the darkness, never looking back after that. Even after my uncle arrived at home, he was still extremely nervous and unsettled, and he immediately went to bed. He doesn't like talking about this encounter, but I feel the need to share it as a warning to others to be careful when driving late at night.
Anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. I am very creeped out right now. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Happy Halloween! Well, it's not Halloween yet, but bye, guys.